Are you interested in being a PhD student or even attending UCLA? Well, today I'm doing a Q&A to talk about my experience as a PhD student at UCLA. And the first question is, what are you getting your PhD in at UCLA? I am a 5th year PhD candidate in the World Arts and Cultures Dance Department, but my PhD is actually a PhD in culture and performance. The next question is, how did you get through really boring papers and theories in order to push through and make it to the more interesting topics? So I hate reading. And that is something, if you've watched my channel, you've heard me say before, and if not, I need you to understand, I hate reading so much. So much, in fact, that I had to create an entire system to help me get through all the readings, even the interesting ones, because I'm just not a person who is motivated to sit down and read. Now, I did make this video that talks about these strategies and the systems that I use to help me get through reading because I'm a slow and distracted reader. But I will say a big part of making it through the more boring parts of graduate school, including papers and theories and things you don't care about, is kind of picking and choosing and finding a way to do the least amount of that work so you can prioritize the things you care most about. So right now that seems pretty vague, and I guarantee if you watch this video, it'll make way more sense. But the honest truth is I didn't read a lot of the stuff that I didn't like or was too difficult for me by themselves, at least. In many cases, I read book reviews or looked online for support or found YouTube videos or asked friends. And so those types of strategies really helped me get through those things instead of trying to make myself or discipline myself to read everything by myself and understand it and keep trying. I was really gentle with myself and just try to figure out how can I make this process as straightforward as possible, but also not as hard as it doesn't need to be harder than what it is. Were you able to build community within your graduate program? I would say yes and no. And that's because when I came onto campus, I had already had conversations with some people in the department that told me kind of straightforwardly what the department culture was like. And it wasn't necessarily the best place for Black women, Black queer women specifically. And so for me, I was really interested in finding a safe place. So the first thing I did when I went on campus is went to the African American Studies department and the Chicano Studies department to build relationships there. So there I was getting to know the chair, I was getting to know the academic advisors, the graduate advisors in those departments, and I was going to their events and programs. This works for me, not just because I'm a Black Mexican person, but also because my research fits in Chicano studies and African American studies. I just could very seamlessly fit in there. And so within those programs, I built relationships with students, with faculty, with graduate support staff to make sure that I had a place where people knew who I was, but also was invested in who I am. In my department, I will say, my cohort mates and I are actually pretty cool. Most departments, though, are only going to accept cohorts between maybe 2 and 5 people. Our cohort was not like that at all. They accepted 13 people and 8 of us accepted the offer. So we were a rather large group. So there was a lot of positive opportunities to get to know a bunch of different people. And from that, I do feel like I have really good, meaningful relationships with people in my cohort. I also reached out beyond my cohort in my department and found students, graduate students that were older than me or in the program longer than me, and built relationship with them as well. And I highly suggest that because people who are ahead of you in the process can really help you figure out what you need to do to be successful in the process. So while it's good to have people in your cohort, it's also good to have people older or longer there to help guide you through that process. I say no because in regards to faculty within our department or events in our department is very much geared towards dance scholarship. A lot of the faculty have very particular research interests, particular personalities that just don't vibe well with me. And so within my particular department, in regards to the power structure, I don't feel like I have a lot of meaningful relationships. Luckily, I found a beautiful, wonderful, a magnificent chair to support me and a supporting committee member from my department that is wonderful as well. And that was great. And there's a couple of other faculty in the department that I know I can depend on, but generally outside of those 4 people, it's not necessarily always good vibes. So I think that's important to just make sure you know what the culture of your department is, so you can figure out if that's a place you need to be, or if you need to do something like I did and figure out what other departments or locations on campus you'll be accepted and supported, so you can make sure that you have those resources and support on campus as well. Also, I know we're in the middle of the video. I just want to say thank you to Lady Adrian, who is the person who DM'd me all of these wonderful questions. If you have your own questions that you want in a Q&A, please leave them in the comments down below, or feel free to message me on Instagram. I obviously respond. So thank you so much. How do you find time for romantic relationships in your PhD? This is actually a really great question, because this was a turning point after the second year, right before COVID started the pandemic. I would leave the house sometimes at 5:30 in the morning and wouldn't get back until 11:30 midnight because of how many jobs I was working, the schoolwork I was doing, and then I was also trying to be a part and active in student groups and things like that. So one big part of maintaining a relationship with a partner is having good communication and also having a good partner. A lot of people take that for granted, but I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know what to expect when I went into grad school. And so Eric, being so understanding and so supportive of me, made it real easy for me to kind of keep trying to be this academic that I thought I needed to be. He was there to advocate for me when things were not going so hot, but also he was communicating when things weren't working for him. And so a big part of that is communication and knowing what your boundaries are and what their boundaries are, and working together in that regards. I also think that when you come to grad school, it's really easy to let grad school absorb you. And this is why I think at that pandemic moment, I had this realization that grad school is going to exist and you're going to have to be a student, but you shouldn't let it consume all parts of your life. So once we were in lockdown and I had this opportunity to spend all this time with my partner, I realized just how much time I had missed because I was doing all of these extra things that weren't necessary for me to graduate. And so I started to really focus on what was the most important parts of my academics and what were the parts that were told I should do but aren't that important. And by creating that balance of figuring out what I need to do, what I have to do, and what they're telling me to do or what I should do, I was able to realize that just as important as my degree, my relationship should also take up that much time or take up that space. And so it's also about you as a graduate student understanding that you do deserve to prioritize your relationships with family, with friends, with your partner, and that grad school will be there. And if certain things don't get done, well, then certain things don't get done. And that's okay, because you're a human first and a grad student second. Now, again, this only works if you have a supportive partner, a caring partner, and good communication skills. If your partner's toxic, not supportive, harmful, or all these other things that are impeding your ability to get your grad school degree, because your partner should also be supportive of that, then you may not need to prioritize that relationship as much. And so it's also being aware of what your circumstances are. But for me, I'm very lucky that Eric is wonderful and understanding and supportive, and then that I was able to decide that that relationship is just as important as my relationship to my research. How has your purpose of getting a PhD changed from the moment that you were filling out the application to now? For me, this is a really cool question because I've never thought of it in that way. But when I applied to get my PhD, I was really focused on how can I help people? And so it was very social justice focused. Like, if I get my PhD, I'll learn these skills and I can take these skills to this job or to this location to help people. But through the process of grad school, I started to learn more about decolonial processes. And from there, I realized that I'm not here to necessarily just do social justice work, but to do decolonial work, and that's a little bit different. So at this point, I don't see my dissertation as a thing I need to learn how to do so I can take it to a place and implement those strategies, but rather I'm seeing this research as a way of changing who I am as a person and how I see the world and how I can communicate these new worldviews and these new beliefs to the people that I care most, to people on YouTube or wherever through my research, to help them also embark on this journey of decoloniality and to find time to help make the world a better place. So it's less particular and more kind of larger systemic, but I think all in all, it's all connected to helping improve the conditions and the ways in which the world functions and the ways that systems impact people. And I think when I was first applying, it was very micro, small, individual interactions. And now I'm looking at larger schemes or larger ideas, and that's really, really cool to me. Would you do anything differently? Yes, a whole lot. And I've actually answered this question in my last Q&A where I talk about grad school and research abroad more generally. But I think in regards to pursuing my PhD, I really wish I had the information from like the videos that I have in my grad admissions playlist where I talk about how to choose a grad program, or like why a faculty mentor is important, or how to choose your research topic and know that it's the right program for you, because I had an idea of what my research was supposed to be, but I didn't really understand how that works in regards to choosing a place to go. And so I was thinking, oh, I have this idea, I hope they think it's good enough, instead of saying, no, I have this idea, it's good enough, I hope this program can support my dreams and desires. And I think if I would have approached it that way, I would have applied to a lot more schools, I would have been a lot more flexible on what programs I would have applied to, and I would have had a lot more confidence in my application, because it changes your perspective from, oh, I hope they pick me, I hope they pick me, to, oh, if this is a good fit, then great, but if not, then I'll keep looking. And so for me, that would be the thing that I would change most, is just feeling like I have to prove my worth, instead of knowing I was worthy, my research was worthy, and I just need to find the institution that would be invested in that. Now that you're at the end of the program, do you regret pursuing a PhD? No. I'm not the type of person that would think like, oh, I wish I would have not pursued grad school and just got a full-time job. I mean, when money's tight, it would be nice to have a savings, but also, I made the most money I've ever made in my life as a PhD student. So you can take that with a grain of salt. There is a video that talks about how much money I make, so if you want to know just how little money I was making before. But I think for me, I really just love the research and learning and school and all of those things. And even though I did enjoy working, I specifically enjoyed working in museums, there was a part of me that felt like I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't doing the thing I cared most about. I didn't have the skill sets to let me do the things I cared most about. And so now I feel like once I finish my PhD, I can always go back to getting a job and have this knowledge or these perspectives behind me. I'm such a different person than I was 5 years ago when I started my PhD. And I would feel so, I don't know, it's just, I love who I am, and I love who this PhD has helped me become. And so to think, oh, I wish I had more money or anything like that, kind of undermines just how impactful this experience has been, the good, the bad, the ugly. So for me, I have no regrets. There may have been times where I wish I would have known different things, approached grad school differently, maybe even possibly pursued a different PhD program altogether. But for me, pursuing a PhD is a non-negotiable. It's been invaluable, and it's been my dream since I was little. So no regrets at all. Don't wish I would have just got a job and lived life. I love being a graduate student. Was it all worth it in the end? I mean, I'm not technically at the end yet. I still have this year, so I don't know yet. But based off of what I just said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be all worth it. This experience again has been wonderful, and I feel so lucky and so blessed, so honored to have this experience and to be able to grow through this program. So we'll see, but probably, yeah, totally worth it. What has been the most challenging aspect of grad school for you? I mean, can I be honest? Grad school is kind of hard, and not because like what I'm learning is hard or things like that, but if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know the hidden curriculum, it's just so easy to get caught off guard with something, or like experience hazing, or like all these negative things to happen. And so for me, the hardest part of grad school is just figuring out what the heck grad school is. And what sucks is oftentimes when you figure it out, it's a little too late, like you've already gone through the bad part. But I think that's partly why I made this YouTube channel. I wanted to help people avoid what I thought was the hardest part for me and to feel more empowered and feel more prepared to be a graduate student so they can focus on their reading, so they can focus on their writing, so they can focus on their research. Whereas if you are a first generation, historically excluded, discriminated person or population, when you get to grad school, like a lot of the odds are against you. Almost every aspect of academics, like academia, is trying to kick you out. And you feel it, you feel that pressure, you feel that weight. And if you don't know what the expectation is, if you don't know how to move forward, if you don't understand the hidden curriculum, you can easily feel like you don't belong, or like you made a mistake, or you're not smart enough, you're not enough, yada, yada, yada. But really it's just like, no, it's systemic. It's supposed to make you feel that way because academia is part of a white supremacist, elitist, capitalistic process that is only for a certain type of population, and it's not going to be Black, Indigenous, people of color that come from low income, that don't have resources, that don't have family with educations, and the list goes on. People with disabilities and all of that jazz. And so for me, the most challenging part has been just navigating all of the non-academic parts of academia. And it kind of sucks. But again, it is avoidable. The more we talk to each other, the more we support each other, the more community we have, building relationships with other people in our department across the university, we can work together and support each other to make that part of academia not so hard. So then the most challenging part could be like managing your readings or something like that. If you want to make sure that you are prepared as possible and you know this hidden curriculum, I would actually head to my PhD Basics playlist because there's a ton of videos to help you avoid this mess that I was throughout my graduate process. If you found at least 2 things useful, please hit the thumbs up to share this video with others who might need it. And as always, your support helps a small YouTuber like me continue to grow. So thank you so much for watching. If you have your own questions for Q&As, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next week.